I went from being the teenager who was looking for Bigfoot to somebody who's actually doing research. This is our Squatch Pod. It's our mobile research lab.
What if the woods remember? What if something ancient moves just beyond the tree line, watching? These 9 encounters don't just raise questions. They leave behind a chilling silence. The world is full of trails we walk without question, but sometimes those trails look back. In this journey, we uncover 9 unsettling Bigfoot encounters, stories that defy reason, ignore patterns, and challenge belief. Each witness came away changed, unsure of what they saw, but certain it wasn't supposed to be there.
At that point, I see his head turn, so I know that I'm not looking at a shadow. And it's in the shoulder?
Yeah.
I want to go home now.
Have you ever filmed something so ordinary, only to find, hidden in a single frame, something extraordinary? That's exactly what happened when 2 creators filmed a backyard survival challenge. On playback, viewers noticed something strange. A dark figure standing upright, obscured by trees. It wasn't addressed in the video, but there it was. Tall, broad, rigidly still. Not a crew member, not a prop. Watch yourself.
Oh, no, this can't be, this can't be. No, this guy's gotta be wrong, he's gotta be wrong. That's right where we are.
The freeze frame spread fast. Users started speculating. Was it a person, a suit, or something else entirely? The silhouette didn't match human proportions. Shoulders too wide, head too forward, and the way it blended into the brush, unnatural. The creators took it seriously. What started as a game turned into an investigation. They returned to the spot with cameras, thermal imaging, and casting material. The original tree line wasn't far from the house, but once you stepped past the lawn, the landscape changed quickly. Dense thickets, narrow game trails, quiet, but not empty. Watch yourself.
Logan, if that's not Bigfoot, I don't know what that is, okay? And that was taken literally 50 yards from this house. Now, I triangulated the forest behind us, and if you check it out on the Bigfoot map forum, there is a lot of sightings here. There's even newspaper articles about Bigfoot being seen in this area.
That's when they found the first track. Pressed deep into the soil, wide, with splayed toes, no shoe pattern. Whatever left it had weight. And it wasn't alone. Another track was found 6 feet ahead. Same shape, same size. The stride was massive. They followed it, slowly, carefully. Branches above shoulder level were broken, not crushed by wind, snapped. Bark scraped off from mid-tree height. A heavy passage, intentional movement. One of the team spotted a hair sample tangled in a split branch, nearly 7 feet up, coarse, gray-brown, root attached. They sealed it in a collection tube. Watch yourself.
It's feeding time.
What? Yo, there's like water in there too.
Look at that. There's like scratch marks all along this log.
What are those?
I don't know. Logan is heading across now. Gonna try and find a path over this massive ditch.
No wildlife approached the area. Even when they left fruit as bait, it remained untouched. But something was moving parallel to them. Out of sight, but not out of range. On thermal, there was a flicker. Something warm, crouched low. It moved between 2 trees and disappeared. Not a deer, not a raccoon, and too fast for any known animal that size. Further in, they discovered claw marks on a fallen log. Fresh, 4 deep grooves, too spaced apart for any local carnivore. The bark hadn't aged yet. Whatever made it was here recently. Close. Watch yourself.
Okay, so Jake's taking the long way around. I found a path that connects us to the river. But since I've been here alone, I've been hearing a lot of weird things in the woods. I don't think it's Bigfoot, guys. In my opinion, I think Jake's just done a little bit too much research and, you know, he's acting a little crazy. But that's just between you and me.
As darkness fell, the environment shifted. The insects stopped. A heavy rustle echoed from behind. Then, A rock fell. Not rolled. Dropped. A tree cracked somewhere uphill. Nothing vocal, but enough to know something was watching. Not charging. Not fleeing. Just present. They stopped at the edge of a ravine. Visibility dropped to 0. It wasn't fear that turned them around, it was instinct. Too many unknowns, and something didn't want to be seen. Watch yourself.
Hairy-looking monster roaming at night. The picture that I took from our last video definitely concerned me, but I still wasn't sure for myself, so we had to push forward, putting all that behind us.
The next morning, they returned. The casts had set. What came out of the ground showed clear impressions. 5 toes, mid-tarsal break, no arch. One was 16 inches long. The weight distribution was off-center, like a creature used to walking uneven terrain. The hair was sent for analysis. No confirmed match, but it didn't align with deer, bear, or canine samples from the region. It remains unidentified. No one was attacked. No structures were found. But what they experienced wasn't entertainment. It was something quietly disturbing. Just far enough outside normal to leave doubt. Just close enough to leave no comfort. Watch yourself.
That's a pretty big foot.
Yeah, we'll be able to get a better imprint of what it looks like once we pull this out, but we're gonna need to let it harden. Now we just gotta wait 30 minutes for that to set, and then we can pull it out. I'm not feeling this. Okay, freak it.
I keep hearing things.
Yeah. Yo, and I know I saw something on that footage, man.
What do you think they captured? A coincidence shaped by branches and shadow? Or a brief accidental glimpse into something watching from the woods? Drop your thoughts below. Have you ever filmed something and only noticed the strange part later? Have you ever camped somewhere so quiet, so remote, that every sound feels magnified? In this video from the Hoggett Project, the camera takes us deep into the wilderness near Mount Rainier, where a peaceful solo camping trip quickly turns into something strange. It all starts with a view too good to ignore. Perched with a clear view of Mount Rainier's snow-capped peak, the camp is chosen more for its scenery than for its security. It's quiet, still, and seemingly untouched, until something in the woods starts knocking. Not once, not twice, but repeatedly. Not mechanical, not random, just knocking. At first, the only sign of something unusual is in the trees, a strange bundle of what looks like hair tangled in the bark. It's coarse, dark, and oddly placed, the kind of find that makes you pause. Watch yourself.
Wow, this is some kind of hair, it looks like, woven in with some tree bark. I don't know what that is.
Nearby, there's a bedded-down patch of forest floor. The shape is circular and wide enough for something large to have rested there. Not deer, not elk, no fur or hoof marks. Just the impression, and the sense that whatever had been there might still be close.
So, didn't even really take a look over here at this side. That's all bedded down, so it looks like some animals took some cover, especially right here. That's a nice little circular spot.
The setup continues. A tent is raised, a fire pit prepared. Light fades fast in the mountains. As night comes on, thermal and infrared gear are brought out. This isn't just camping, it's observation. The tech includes a black hot thermal setting, where anything giving off heat appears dark on screen. Hands glow black, trees stay pale. The forest reveals what the eye misses. Watch yourself.
It's on black hot, which means anything black being recorded is supposedly hot. And you can see there's my hand, so that's what you get.
At the edge of camp, movement, brief, just a flicker across the thermal viewfinder. It's enough to make the investigators stop. "I can see somebody down there," he says softly, uncertain. Not a person, not quite.
Oh, I can see somebody down there.
Later, wind sweeps across the site, but not from the usual direction. It comes from behind, which is strange for that slope. Fire starter gel sparks the flames to life. Leftover lasagna gets warmed up. He films casually, but you can sense he's on edge. It's a quiet night inside the tent, but just before dawn, something stirs outside. Footsteps, faint, crunching dry leaves. The camera picks up subtle audio. He says it could be mice, but the weight of the steps suggests something bigger. Still, there's no full confirmation, just tension. Batteries keep dying fast. 4 already drained. 1 more and he's down to just a phone. Meanwhile, the squirrels are in chaos, chattering wildly in one direction. He tries moving closer, but whatever's in the woods seems to hear him too. Watch yourself.
Wow, freaky.
Breakfast the next morning is quiet. Chicken-flavored rice heats in a camp pot. The sun returns. He sits in it, finally able to relax. But the peace doesn't last long. Off to the side of camp, branches snap again. Not once. Several in succession. Then, 2 slow, deliberate footsteps. And just like the night before, the squirrels react. All eyes on the trees. Something is moving again. And it isn't just the wind. Watch yourself.
Yeah, I think what I'm gonna do is come over here. I'm just sit in the sun. Man, that feels nice.
As he breaks camp, you get the sense this trip was not what he expected. The inflatable tent deflates. The mountain looms in the background. But the real story happened in the woods. Out of sight, half heard, maybe unseen, but definitely there. So what was making the knocking sounds? What stirred the squirrels? Was it just wind and wildlife, or something more? Let us know what you think. Have you ever heard knocking in the woods?
I don't seen it. Bro.
What the is that?
Oh!
What is that?
Have you ever stepped into a place where the silence feels watched? That's the feeling the team couldn't shake as they approached the entrance to the abandoned mine. It was remote, half collapsed in places, with rusted rails still leading into the dark. They'd visited this site before, recorded strange EMF readings and caught unusual sounds. But this night felt heavier, charged. Still. The first investigator entered with a flashlight in hand, confident but cautious. The beam cut a narrow path through the dust. About 20 feet in, without warning, the flashlight went dark. No flicker, no dimming, just sudden, complete failure. Watch yourself.
All right, Jen, whatever you are, I'm leaving your cave. Don't attack me on the way out, please. Oh my God. My flashlight just died. It won't turn on. It won't turn on. Guys! Ah! What the is that? Something just growled off. Oh, what the hell's in here? There's something actually in here. Oh my God. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Oh. Ah! What the is that?
He paused, thinking it was a loose connection. Pulled out his phone to use the LED. It lit. But only seconds later, a low growl echoed through the tunnel. Not an animal sound. Something deeper, more deliberate. It was enough to freeze him in place. He whispered toward the entrance, but when he looked back, no one was there. A moment later, bats stirred overhead. One swooped toward his face, and he turned and bolted. As soon as he stepped out into open air, the flashlight blinked back on, bright and steady. No issues. He hadn't touched it. Back at the entrance, he told the others what happened. One of them, a skeptic, volunteered to go in himself. The others joked about locking the gate behind him. He laughed it off and stepped inside. Just minutes later, he came sprinting out of the shaft at full speed. So disoriented, he slammed into a nearby tree. See it for yourself.
Grab me the padlock. I don't think he'll last a whole 15 minutes.
I don't know. Oh, here he comes.
Whoa, whoa, are you okay? Whoa. Did you not see the tree? Did you hit the tree face first? What happened? Are you okay? Holy sh**.
He just got,
oh, he's cut up.
I think that was a sack.
Oh.
What the happened? You didn't see the tree?
When they got to him, he was trembling. He didn't speak right away, just pointed back into the mine. He said he'd heard something brushing against the tunnel wall. Then he felt it. Something moved past him. Not wind, not an animal, a presence. Only later did one team member share what the landowner had told him earlier. Years ago, a man had gone missing in that mine, never recovered. The records were sparse, just one old article mentioning a disappearance. The mine had been shut down soon after. Back at their temporary base, an RV parked near the property line, one of the investigators stayed behind to check gear. He said he'd go live from the site later, made a joke about doing a solo broadcast in the mine. But as he leaned over his gear, a sudden, deafening bang struck the side of the RV. The whole vehicle rocked.
Did you guys hear that?
What the was that?
Something just banged something, like, really loud.
Yeah, I felt that in the side of the RV, but I don't think it was the RV that got hit.
I don't know. It sounded like it hit metal. Like
Oh, God damn it. I was just falling asleep, too.
He jumped up and looked outside. Nothing. No footsteps. No movement. He assumed it was a prank, radioed the rest of the team, but they were still at the house, reviewing footage. No one had been near the RV. Earlier in the evening, one member had described something strange when walking deep into the shaft. He said the ground felt soft, almost sponge-like. He stepped carefully, but something about the soil gave him a sinking sensation. Then he heard it, faint, almost out of range. A man's voice, not words, just a tone. Low, echoing. Another member said he felt drained after leaving the tunnel, like something had latched on. He couldn't explain it. It wasn't fear, it was exhaustion. Like his energy had been siphoned the moment he crossed the threshold. Listen closely.
Devour me at some point.
Yeah, because it did sound like an animal, like totally growling, right?
Not to mention the frickin' bats.
And I don't know about you guys. Did you hear any clicking sounds?
I heard a clicking.
I didn't. No.
I heard a clicking.
I heard a clicking.
did?
Yeah, I heard a clicking.
What the?
Okay, we all just heard that.
Yeah.
As they left the site, all of them reported hearing the same thing. Gravel crunching near the gate, soft clicks echoing off rock. Rhythmic, repetitive. Something pacing near the mouth of the shaft. Long after they'd closed the entrance and packed up their gear. The next morning, the drone operator noticed something strange on the property. Just beyond the mine, tucked into a small ravine, was a pool of water they hadn't seen before. Rust red, still, but the surface had a faint swirling motion, even without wind. They marked the location for a return visit.
All right, we just made it to the Orange Lake. This is pretty surreal. I've never seen anything like this before. The reason why we're even making an effort to explore things like this for this Bigfoot video is because places like this could potentially have prints. It is completely orange.
Whatever had been in that mine hadn't just stayed inside. It followed, it interacted, and it left a trail the team wasn't finished following. What do you think they encountered beneath that mountain? Was it something left behind or something still waiting? Let us know in the comments. Have you ever seen something as a child that stayed with you, not like a memory, but like a mission? For Scott Violette, it happened when he was just 7 years old. Sitting in a movie theater, waiting for the feature to start, the lights dimmed and a short newsreel began to roll. What he saw wasn't fiction. It was the Patterson-Gimlin film, a short silent reel showing a tall, upright creature striding through the woods of Northern California. Watch for yourself.
And I went from being the teenager who was looking for Bigfoot to somebody who's actually doing research. This is our Squatch Pod. It's our mobile research lab. Patterson got 13 seconds before his film ran out, and now we can do hours and hours and hours.
That glimpse changed everything. Scott recalls seeing the figure move across the screen and thinking, wow, they are real. From that moment forward, his childhood shifted. Instead of just exploring the forest, he was searching, looking for signs, for prints, for some trace of the creature he saw in that flickering film. As the years passed, that childhood curiosity didn't fade. It matured. Scott began to learn the scientific method, how to test ideas, rule out false leads, and gather evidence with care. He went from a teenager looking for something magical to an adult doing methodical field research. Today, Scott runs investigations from a custom-built mobile lab he calls the Squatch Pod, a place to collect and review audio, video, and environmental data right there in the field. Watch for yourself.
It was filmed by Paul Freeman. He was actually a Forest Service worker.
Yeah, it looked like they'd been here.
We found some footprints and he was following those.
Oh, there he goes.
That went into the Annals of Bigfoot history, that video there, and that's one of the reasons I enjoy searching.
He contrasts it with the limitations of the past. Patterson had just 13 seconds of film before it ran out. Now, Scott can record for hours, capturing everything from thermal scans to environmental audio. He also uses aerial photography, allowing him to, but for all the gear, all the tools, his philosophy remains rooted in patience. He doesn't chase Bigfoot, he waits. You don't find Bigfoot, he finds you. He'll send people out, spread them across remote areas, and simply sit. No lights, no speaking, just listen. Because, as he says, the woods will come alive for you. In 2 decades of this work, he's had 5 personal interactions, 5 moments where something moved in a way that defied normal explanation. But Scott doesn't speak about them with drama. He speaks with quiet certainty. He often reminds people he doesn't believe in Bigfoot. Belief, he says, is for religion. What he does is study, examine evidence, follow patterns. Watch for yourself.
Because there is proof and evidence in history here. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I've spent a lot of time in the woods. In that 20 years, I've had 5 interactions with Bigfoot.
One of the reasons he focuses his efforts in the Blue Mountains is because of a legendary piece of footage, the Freeman film, shot by Paul Freeman, a forestry worker. In that video, Freeman follows a trail of large footprints in the forest before filming a figure ahead of him. That footage, Scott says, went into the annals of Bigfoot history. And it's part of why he returns to these woods, because history has already left its marks here. As for what Bigfoot might be, Scott keeps his mind open. He doesn't claim to know. Could it be a species of gorilla? A relic hominid? Something ancient that never died out? Maybe even something closer to human than we're ready to admit. Watch for yourself.
I don't really believe in Bigfoot. I leave belief up to religion. I've studied the evidence and found it credible. I think they have a very small population. They're very discreet about being seen by humans. Well, I'm not sure if it's a gorilla or a hominid. It could be a a relic hominid. So it could be just like us.
He suspects they live in small, scattered populations and avoid humans by choice, not chance. Their ability to remain undetected may not be luck, it may be intelligence. And so, Scott keeps searching, not with certainty, but with conviction. Because for him, it's no longer a question of belief. It's a question of evidence, and the only way to find it is time in the woods. There's something haunting about the quiet forests of the San Bernardino Mountains. Towering pines, long shadows, and for one California woman, something else. Something she says most people will never believe. Claudia Ackley, a Crestline resident and mother, didn't just claim to see Bigfoot. She tried to make it law. In 2018, Claudia filed a lawsuit asking the state of California to formally recognize Sasquatch as a living species. Her reason? A personal encounter that shook her beliefs and reshaped her life. Watch for yourself.
We're about 10, 20 feet behind me, and as I turn around, I'm looking straight, and I see the creature on that tree. So what I do is I continue walking closer to try to tell myself, am I seeing a shadow, a tree stump? At that point, I see his head turn, so I know that I'm not looking at a shadow. And this is where I stop, and this is where everything pretty much happened. This is where my daughter videotaped from your angle to the tree right over here.
It happened near Lake Arrowhead. Claudia and her daughters were hiking along a trail when something appeared from the tree line. According to her, it was massive, around 800 pounds, with a human-like face and muscular frame. It stood upright and stared, not afraid, just watching. Her daughters were frozen. So was she. Claudia didn't just run from it, she studied it. She began gathering stories, talking to witnesses, and diving deep into documented sightings around Southern California. The more she found, the more she became convinced that her encounter was part of a much larger pattern. But the authorities weren't interested. Park officials dismissed the sighting. Biologists told her it was likely a bear. She disagreed. So, she took legal action.
I swear to God. Mom?
Is it by the tree?
Yeah.
In the shoulder?
Yeah.
I want to go home now.
Her lawsuit argued that the California Department of Fish and Wildlife was ignoring valid scientific claims and eyewitness accounts. It wasn't about proving Sasquatch exists in court. It was about compelling the state to conduct a serious investigation. For Claudia, the stakes weren't just personal. They were ecological. If something like Bigfoot was out there, rare, endangered, and intelligent, it deserved recognition and protection. But ultimately, she withdrew the petition. Not because she changed her mind, but because she realized something deeper. The legal system wasn't built to accept beings that straddle the line between myth and reality. To this day, Claudia maintains that what she saw was real. She doesn't need belief. She has memory. She has the fear. And she has the silence that followed.
He weighed about 800 pounds. He had hair all over him, orangutan color. He also did not show his teeth, but he had black solid eyes. And this is where he was at. My daughter saw two of them running at this point, where we have a 13-inch print in this area, and they run back here with the big guy. So there was a total of 3 Sasquatches that day. At that point, he started rocking back and forth, and that's when I knew it was time for us to go. So, okay, so then this is where his body weight was on that limb right there.
In the mountains of San Bernardino, when the wind dies down and the trees stop moving, you can still hear something. Maybe footsteps. Maybe just your own heartbeat. Was Claudia simply mistaken? Or did she see one of the world's most elusive creatures? Have you ever had an experience like this? What would you do if the state told you it didn't happen? Let us know in the comments. Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to stand just meters away from a living legend? One you've only ever heard about in whispers through the trees? For 27 hours, Russell and his cameraman were completely off-grid. No radio, no GPS signal, nothing. The team feared the worst. But when he finally reappeared, he brought back more than just an explanation. He brought footage. Russell had been tracking what he believed were signs of two Sasquatch in conflict, deep in the wilderness. He followed a trail of broken limbs and blood droplets through the underbrush, eventually landing eyes on something most people only dream of seeing. The team huddled around his screen. At first, all you see is landscape, just a hillside, calm and quiet. But then, there it is. Movement, something dark, hunched low, crossing a bald patch on the slope. Watch for yourself.
Right on that clear spot right there. It's dark. It just moved a little bit. Do you see anything? No, not the first one, not the first one. Drop down, it's the second one. There's 3 little bald spots there. Look at the second one through. There's something dark right there. I think I saw it move.
I saw something.
Right there. Are you seeing that? Holy right there, just zoom in, right there. Are you seeing that? Oh, we gotta get down there.
I saw something. What the
It's slow, deliberate, not an animal on all fours, not a bear. The gait is upright. The proportions are human, but too large. The legs are long, the arms dangling low, and the whole form seems heavy, like it's favoring one side. Then it walks. Not lurching, not limping wildly, but uneven. Almost like it's injured, specifically the right arm, which doesn't swing naturally. The left arm moves, but the right stays tight against the torso. Russell thinks it could have been hurt during the earlier fight, maybe even broken. They played the footage back, frame by frame. The figure doesn't behave like a bear. It doesn't look like one either. The legs are lean, the stride measured, and the head rounded, not conical like most animals in this region. If this was a hoax, it was a well-executed one. But out here, miles from any road or person, the question lingers. Who would go to that effort? Russell had spotted the figure just 2 meters south of the tripwire surveillance array. 2 meters. That close. The evidence wasn't distant anymore. It was on the edge of their setup. Rather than chase it alone, Russell made the call. Regroup, re-strategize, and go back together. Watch for yourself.
Where is the right arm?
Yeah.
You see the left arm?
Yeah.
Where's the right arm?
It almost makes it seem like maybe it might have injured the arm or broke it in the scuffle, and then maybe it's holding it close to its body, you know?
Getting something like this is why I couldn't stop. There was no way I was going to be able to get down that mountain fast enough to catch up to it. And I knew you guys would be looking for me, so I thought my best bet was to get together, take you all to the area where I last had eyes on this thing.
He showed them where it all happened. The cabin, the fight scene, the blood trail heading northwest, and finally the hill where the creature was last seen disappearing west into the trees. They finally had a trail, a path, and perhaps the most important clue yet. The creature may be injured and moving slow. Watch for yourself.
Wanted to move on. I'm gonna head back to the command center and start making some calls, but we need to move fast.
Be going on, we'll go get our gear, and then we'll meet you in that area.
Yeah, perfect.
I'll hop in right with you.
Let's do it.
We need to act fast.
Now the team had urgency, not just curiosity, but opportunity. If this being was real, this was their best chance at a real encounter. And that raises a deeper question. If you were standing where Russell stood, camera in hand, heart pounding, would you have chased it down or walked away? Could this be the clearest proof yet of Bigfoot in the wild? Or just another shadow that plays tricks on the eyes? Let us know what you think. What did they capture on film that day? Have you ever witnessed something that defied explanation? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever felt like the forest was listening? Not just quiet, but aware, as if the stillness around you was holding its breath. That's exactly how Richard described the moment before it happened. In January 2021, somewhere along a quiet pine trail in New Zealand's North Island, he stepped into something he couldn't explain. It wasn't just a feeling, something was there. Richard wasn't a cryptid hunter or thrill seeker. He was filming a personal message, a tribute to love and the unseen patterns that shape our world. The forest around him was calm, windless, but as his words touched on connection, consciousness, and ancient memory, something changed. Then came the sounds. First, a deep thump, far off but unmistakable. Then another. Richard paused, camera still rolling. A third hit, closer this time. The ground seemed to shudder with each impact, like something impossibly heavy was moving nearby, on 2 feet. He turned the camera toward the tree line. Nothing but stillness, no birds, no movement. Just that low, humming tension that creeps in when the forest holds its secrets tight. And then, just for a second, a face, half-hidden, gray-toned and watching him from the brush. Its features weren't human, but they weren't fully beast either. The eyes were set wide, the brow heavy. It didn't blink, it didn't move, but it was there. Watch the moment Richard didn't scream or run. He simply stepped back and kept the camera steady. When he returned to the same spot hours later, what he found shook him even more. A circle of pine branches carefully snapped and arranged in a spiral. Not natural fall, not random. Each branch placed deliberately, forming what looked like a symbol or sign. This wasn't there before, and no one else had passed through that stretch of forest. In Maori folklore, there's a figure called the Moehau Man, a large, silent being said to dwell in remote mountain forests. Most dismiss it as legend, but Richard's footage sparked renewed curiosity. The symmetry of the stick formation, the impact sounds, and that face. Skeptics pointed to pareidolia, seeing faces in patterns of leaves and shadow. Others argued it was staged, but the video remained raw and unedited. No cuts, no digital effects, just a man, a camera, and something watching him from the trees. And then there's the moment itself, the strange timing. The knocks only began once Richard's words shifted toward themes of love, memory, and unseen energy, as if whatever was out there responded to emotion, not noise. Since posting the video, Richard hasn't gone looking again, but he hasn't stopped thinking about that day either. Not just what he saw, but how it made him feel. A presence that wasn't threatening, but aware, intelligent, listening. Could it be that the Moehau Man isn't just a relic of old stories, but part of a larger truth hiding in plain sight? And if so, why does it only appear to those who feel, not just those who seek? What do you think Richard encountered that day? Was it legend coming to life, or something we still don't have the language to explain? Have you ever wondered what's hiding in the forests of Western Virginia, just beyond the ridgeline? Not far from the border of West Virginia, a hunter named Roger Williams was preparing for deer season. Like many hunters, he used trail cameras, motion-triggered devices strapped to trees to monitor wildlife. In these quiet Appalachian woods, he didn't expect anything out of the ordinary, but what one of his cameras captured made him stop cold. Watch yourself.
On our way to meet the guy named Roger Williams, his hunting club got a very interesting photo of something which could be a Sasquatch.
It's opening day of deer season, a time when wildlife scatters, sensing the change. And while hunters ready themselves for whitetail, another kind of mystery begins to unfold in the shadows. A photograph, taken quietly in these ridges thick with bear, deer, and old mountain silence, has stirred debate. Is this a young Sasquatch, or simply a bear caught in a strange posture? The image is raw, unclear, yet strangely suggestive. Broad shoulders, long arms, defined glutes, traits not typical of a bear. Locals speak of strange growls echoing across Kaywood Reservoir at 2 a.m., movements in the dark, a sense of something else watching from deeper in the timber. Roger stared at it for hours. "It's not a deer, not a hog. It's not what I usually get on camera," he said. When the Finding Bigfoot team arrived, they looked at the area firsthand. What they saw was typical Bigfoot country: remote hollows, deer trails, clean spring water, and dense cover. All the ingredients for a reclusive, intelligent creature to live undetected. Opening day of deer season had just started, so wildlife in the area was already behaving differently. As Roger explained, deer tend to move toward no hunting zones when pressure increases. The team speculated, if Bigfoot exists and preys on deer, it would likely follow the herds into those safe zones. That strategy, they believed, could explain why sightings increase around hunting season. Reactions to the image varied. Some said it was a juvenile bear, others weren't so sure. The limb proportions looked off, the arm long, the heel visible. What made Roger pause most wasn't just the shape, it was the glute muscles. "Bears don't have butts like that," he joked, but there was a serious anatomical point there. Many Bigfoot witnesses report a stocky, muscular build with a noticeably broad posterior, something missing from any known North American mammal. Watch yourself.
I've seen bears in all different situations. Looking at this photograph, I see nothing but a black bear. That's exactly what the fur looks like.
To test the figure's scale and form, Bobo recreated the shot. He crouched in the same location, trying to match the posture exactly. They compared both images. Bobo's shoulder width, leg bend, and limb thickness were different. Despite being a grown man, his proportions didn't quite match what was captured. The trail cam figure remained an outlier. Too small for a man, too human-like for a bear. Adding to the mystery, Roger recalled a separate incident from just over the ridge at Kaywood Reservoir. A solo camper heard something vocalizing deep in the woods around 2 a.m. Not a coyote, not an owl. A chesty, resonant growl that rose and fell like speech. It happened 3 times. Then silence. The sound echoed across the water. No one else was around. Could it be connected? It's easy to dismiss blurry images or strange sounds, but sometimes it's the subtle patterns that raise the most compelling questions. Deer move, bears forage, but something else may be watching, shifting with the seasons, staying just far enough away. So look again. What did Roger capture that day? A curious bear? A trick of light? Or a young Sasquatch caught mid-movement, unaware that it had just been seen? Mike Patterson, the voice behind Sasquatch Ontario, has spent over a decade chronicling a phenomenon most dismiss without question. Since 2008, and more profoundly since 2012, his experiences have not been of the fleeting kind. These are ongoing relationships, deepening year after year. In his view, Sasquatch are not beasts lurking in shadows. They are a people, intelligent, ancient, and not from this dimension alone. He describes them as an interdimensional human type, reaching out through trust, not fear, dismantling our accepted paradigms one encounter at a time.
You know, what and who the Sasquatch are, from my understanding, they're an ancient people, they're interdimensional. You know, we are on the precipice of this being blown wide open, right?
This story isn't about blurry photos or speculative howls in the night. It's about direct contact, and it begins with 4 tracks in the snow, 3 juvenile, 1 adult. The prints appear out of nowhere, silent and precise, left deliberately, perhaps even ceremonially. As Mike and his longtime friend Dwayne examine the spacing, something unexpected happens. A sudden thump against Mike's shoulder interrupts the quiet. A snowball, flung with pinpoint force, crashes into him out of nowhere. Dwayne, standing beside him, didn't throw it, nor could he have at that speed. Laughter follows, not their own. A vocalization, distinct and young, breaks through the cold air, recorded by the camera but unheard in real time. Watch yourself.
1,
Oh, I just got hit with a snowball. I just got whacked. I just got hit in the shoulder, man.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, so that.
What you're hearing is Ninyanen, a young male Sasquatch, identified through years of subtle interaction and unmistakable personality. This wasn't the first time Mike had been targeted with snowballs, nor was it the first time this playful figure had made his presence known. Ninyanen's been around for years, described by Mike as a prankster, an endearing presence who never veers into harm. In fact, according to Mike, this teenager has likely been given more freedom by his family, stepping into human interaction more boldly than others. What might seem childish or trivial, like flinging snow, has profound implications when it comes from a being existing in both our realm and another. The audio captured on that day is not an isolated incident. Mike references another clip, an indoor vocalization from a family member named Neff, heard during a completely different interaction. The voices, he says, are strikingly similar. This continuity in vocal pattern hints at something deeper: individual identity, familial connection, and intention. These aren't random events. They're traceable, personal, and part of an unfolding story known only to those who choose to listen. And compare the tones yourself.
Oh, see that? Did you see that? Look, right there. That hole right there in the snow, that just came over my shoulder.
Is that right?
Yeah, right there.
Oh.
The encounter, recorded in February 2021, is only now being released. Mike admits that not everything makes it to the public. Some moments are too personal, others too sacred. The trust built between human and Sasquatch is fragile and hard-earned. These moments, like the snowball or the unseen giggle, are not performances for an audience. They're acknowledgments of connection, of trust earned over years, not minutes. Mike believes these beings are here to help, not in a savior mythos, but as catalysts for awakening. He recounts one telepathic message where, when asked why they chose to stay in that location rather than retreat to safety, they responded with a single word: help. It's a profound moment, one that reframes the entire narrative from something mysterious and aloof to something compassionate and engaged. Watch yourself to hear that philosophy unfold in his own voice. From footprint impressions revealing distinct toe pads to the consistent sound signatures of vocalizations, Mike documents it all. He runs multiple audio rigs through his vehicle sunroof, records night after night, and catalogs the strange and unexplainable. And in doing so, he paints a portrait not of chaos, but of a structured, intelligent presence that doesn't fit within the narrow confines of current scientific thought. This was not a hunt. This was a visit. So here's the question that lingers. What if the greatest scientific breakthrough of our age isn't hiding in a lab, but watching from the tree line? What if all it takes to begin contact is trust? If you've ever felt that chill in the forest, or caught a glimpse of something just beyond the edge of reason, now is the time to start asking questions. What do you believe about Sasquatch? Have you experienced something you can't explain? Drop your thoughts in the comments and share this video with someone still on the fence. It's time to talk about what's real, no matter how impossible it seems. The Florida swamps don't ask for attention. They take it. A place where light struggles to pierce the canopy, and every step could land you ankle-deep in mystery. The ordinary hiker might glance around, wary of gators and snakes. But those who look closer, those who listen when the world goes silent, sometimes they find something else, something watching. What you're about to witness is not a tale told around campfires. It's a boots-on-the-ground chronicle of one man who has spent a decade turning whispers into evidence. He is not a celebrity researcher. He is not welcomed by exclusive organizations or praised in flashy blogs. He is simply someone who has gone further, stayed longer, and refused to come back empty-handed. From deep within Florida's wetlands, the YouTube channel Florida Sasquatch emerges as a raw, unfiltered catalog of potential proof. Audio recordings captured in the black of night. Still photos that may reveal something hulking just beyond the tree line. And FLIR footage that flickers with unexplainable shapes. Some call it skunk ape, others, the Florida Bigfoot. Either way, what's happening here deserves more than a shrug. Watch yourself as the researcher compares a chilling vocalization captured in 2010 to a sound previously archived by the BFRO in 2006.
It is very well possible that this is the Florida Bigfoot or the skunk ape, but there's no doubt in my mind, based on the pitch and tone of this animal, even though the vocal was not as drawn out as the other one.
The tone and pitch are nearly identical. Though shorter, the sound betrays the same deep, resonant signature. This isn't speculation, it's comparison. Technology against memory. Field data against archived audio. But even recordings pale in comparison to what was captured on a November day near Pine Island. A photo, not video, though that was the intention, shows a figure mid-stride across a clearing. At first, the image seems like one of countless blurry shots circulating online. But as you zoom in, details sharpen. The eyes, the arms, the broad shoulders and massive leg muscles take form. Not imagined, not drawn, photographed. To examine the shot for yourself, you'll see what he saw, what many others refuse to acknowledge.
Detail emerges. You can see the face, you can see the eyes, the deltoids, thick bicep, thick triceps, a forearm.
A figure caught moving with the precision and muscle of a primate, yet undeniably bipedal. There's no trick of light, no overreaching interpretation. Just clear anatomical features frozen in motion. The type of image skeptics often demand, but seldom accept. Still, photographs and sound bites haven't been enough to break through the velvet ropes of mainstream cryptid circles. Despite presenting hundreds of hours of research, this man's work has been overshadowed by anecdotal accounts, often unaccompanied by a single shred of proof. Eyewitnesses lauded as experts. Storytellers praised while field evidence gathers dust. The frustration is palpable and justified, and yet the response hasn't been retreat. It's been escalation. Enter the Seminole Project, a network of stealth cameras buried deep in Florida's harshest, most inaccessible swamps, already active, already watching. These devices don't blink. They don't embellish. What they record will go to the few researchers willing to look without bias. Derek Randalls, Tim Stover, First Billy Jack, and anthropologist Dr. David Degling. No filter, no gatekeeping, and you'll feel the shift, not just in tone, but in atmosphere.
Can you hear the footsteps over the plane? Boy, there's a lot of glare on this camera.
As the figure crouches low and pivots its head like a gorilla, the brush explodes with startled birds. The camera struggles with glare, the air crackles with unease, and something massive disappears into silence. Again, it's not theatrical, it's not staged, it's real-time dread. For those who still question whether the evidence adds up, he offers this. The BFRO declined to include him. Cryptomundo refused to feature his work, and yet what he's captured stands shoulder to shoulder, if not above, much of what fills those sites. While others recount tales from campgrounds and distant trails, this man is 300 days a year in the mud, the dark, and the heat, coming back with more than just stories. So ask yourself, when the next photo surfaces, when another vocal hits the web, will it be easier to dismiss it? Or will it finally be time to ask, what if the truth has been right here in Florida all along? If this is your first time hearing about the Florida Sasquatch Project, dive into the evidence yourself. Does it convince you or challenge your beliefs? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you've had your own encounter, we want to hear it. Subscribe for more boots-on-the-ground investigations that don't just ask the questions, they chase the answers. Few who enter the Florida swamps ever return the same. There's something about the stillness, the weight of silence, that feels off. Those who wander long enough begin to notice it. A distant knock that wasn't a tree, a whistle without wind, and eventually, that deep guttural sound that makes the hair on your neck rise before your brain can catch up. What you're about to see isn't for entertainment. It's a window into the unknown, where each step forward risks crossing an invisible threshold. From curious explorer to unwelcome trespasser. As the team returns to the fridge site, a location carefully gifted and marked from previous expeditions. The plastic still hangs, the tobacco remains, even the marble and stone offering, left on the rag, untouched.
And we're here at the famous fridge. Yeah. The chew I left still here. Tobacco Joey left still here.
But something's changed. Items once placed with intent are now absent. A stick arrangement by Max is missing, though his stone remains. Only a handful of people, fewer than a dozen, have even been out here. And yet something's rearranging the forest. Beyond the brush, they move toward the skunk spot, deeper than before, hearts pounding in a strange rhythm. This place isn't just visited, it's watched. The original discovery of the fridge had come after a double knock echoing from the direction they now approach. That knock still haunts them, not because of its volume, but because of its precision. As if a signal, as if a boundary had been crossed, and something on the other side had responded. They settle into a clearing near the log, equipment primed. The team begins using experimental frequencies, tuning forks, dog whistles, deer grunts, all aimed at testing a theory. Can sound draw out a presence? The moment is tense. The EMF detector lights up yellow, then red. A low whistle floats in, subtle, not human. Vibrations are felt through the log.
We're getting hits here, EMF detectors, and then there was something out here.
Yeah, something out that way. I tried a dog whistle, deer grunt, doe call, nothing.
The fridge, left untouched for months, now hums faintly beneath their feet. One whispers they feel it in their spine, like sitting on a purring engine. That's when the atmosphere shifts. A breeze whips up as the EMF begins pulsing again. The tuning fork, long stored away in a backpack, somehow echoes faintly. Chris hadn't touched it in 5 minutes, but multiple members claim to hear it again, vibrating near the fridge. It's not imagination, it's spatial, audible, surrounding them. Something mimics the tool's frequency, as if repeating it, testing them. A presence they cannot see, yet feel closing in. It's not just detection anymore, it's interaction. In the silence that follows, they catch movement, a soft rustle, then that unmistakable smell, pungent, musky, like skunk, but not quite.
I caught a whoop ahead of us. I don't know if any of our equipment will catch it or not because there was a lot of, foot noise. But it was one single whoop, like that.
The same odor that's marked previous encounters. Whispers pass between the group. Someone heard a whistle. Another, a branch snapping. But there's no visual. The forest holds its secrets tight. And then, it hits. A resonant sound, guttural and deep, closer than any of them expected. The kind of vocalization that bypasses logic and speaks to something ancient in the human brain. Danger. Something big is out here, and it knows exactly where they are. They stand frozen. The tuning fork sound is heard again, though it's packed away.
Oh, did you hear that?
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear that?
You just stepped on something.
No, I didn't. That was behind.
Chris.
No, it was back this way.
Their equipment flares without warning. Voices drop to whispers. There is no panic, but there is awe, and a growing, mutual realization. They're no longer tracking something, it's tracking them. The game has flipped.
Let's pull back. That was sizable.
He's coming.
Okay, let's go. Let's go. It's not safe. No.
Night begins to fall over the swamp. Long shadows stretch across the underbrush. The forest becomes a mirror, reflecting every fear, every question, every truth they've tried to ignore. And in that darkness, there's clarity. The line between myth and reality is no longer blurry. It's shattered. This wasn't just another night in the woods. This was a communication, a warning, maybe even a test. The skunk ape, or whatever force moves through these trees, has acknowledged them, not as lost hikers, but as intruders. And now the question lingers like smoke in the humid air. If this was the last day of the expedition, what would have happened had they stayed one day longer? There are places in Florida that no map can truly define, corridors of wilderness that hold more than gators and cypress trees. What lives there is watching, and sometimes it answers. If you've ever doubted that something walks the wild places of this world, think again. Could specific frequencies really lure out an unseen intelligence? Why did the tuning fork echo when no one held it? Was that just coincidence? Or something far stranger? Share your thoughts below. What do you believe? Have you ever looked up at a mountain ridge and wondered if someone or something was watching from the tree line? Jessica C. never expected that moving to a quiet peak above Dworshak Reservoir would open a doorway to years of strange and unexplained encounters. As a teenager, newly relocated from Boise, she found herself immersed in a forested wilderness unlike anything she'd known. Towering ridges, heavy snowfalls, and thick brush hiding what she would only later understand to be significant. Her family settled on the Orofino side of the mountain in '96. Across a dirt road from their 5-acre homestead sat a massive rounded peak they nicknamed Mr. N's Knob Hill. It belonged to their neighbor, who owned hundreds of acres that wrapped around their home. From their porch, the mountaintop seemed deceptively small, an illusion created by its perfect curves and the tree line hugging the summit. But climbing it proved otherwise. No matter how far they went, the top never seemed to get closer. One spring, when the snow had finally melted and the dense canopy dripped with rain, Jessica and her younger siblings ventured out into the draw near their property. They had spent their early days watching wildlife, digging through the underbrush, and exploring the land. The first few times out, they noticed trillium blooming, beautiful 3-petaled flowers peeking through the pine needles. But not long after, they started hearing something else, a rhythmic clacking, like stones being tapped together. The sound would come in bursts, 5 or 6 taps, then shift locations. Always just out of view, always from the deepest parts of the timber. The sounds weren't all. As they pushed deeper into the draw, something shifted. Jessica recalls a growing unease, a presence she couldn't name. Loud cracks echoed from the brush near the fence line. Then they came upon it, a young tree, thick as a human arm, bent unnaturally into an arch. Jessica describes it as a doorway, still held together by bark, but broken clean in at least 2 places. Just past it lay a fallen log where they'd sat the day before, now marked by 3 stones. The trillium they'd admired had been stomped flat. She was sure her siblings were pranking her. But they denied it. Jessica couldn't shake the feeling that the arch and the rocks were intentional, almost like a message or a boundary. Something had been there, watching. Years passed, but the unease never left. Between 1996 and 2003, Jessica experienced more than one moment that defied explanation. Strange feelings of being watched, unnerving stillness in the trees. And on one unforgettable day, she saw them. A group of tall figures walking casually up the opposite mountain slope. From her vantage point, they appeared to be moving with calm purpose, like a family out for a stroll. But their proportions were off. Their gait, smooth, powerful, not human. Now in her mid-30s, Jessica reflects on those moments with more clarity. She's no Bigfoot expert, she says, but she doesn't need to be. She simply shares what she saw and felt, leaving the interpretation up to others. The mountain that towered above her childhood home still holds its secrets, but she's no longer afraid to speak about them. Watch yourself. What do you think Jessica encountered near Dworshak Reservoir? Have you ever seen or heard something in the woods that stayed with you for years? Let us know your thoughts. In every story, a question lingers. Was it myth stepping into the light, or something even stranger? These encounters may fade into the fog of memory, but the fear remains. So tell us, which moment struck you the deepest? And could you face the woods again, knowing what might still walk there?